Chapter 806, Ningji, you are indeed amazing. Susan filmed the rest of her scenes like normal. And finally, with an applause from the crew, she completed her parts in the film. At this time, Tangning still had a few thousand scenes to film. Lin Qian had investigated Susan, but did not discover anything. She simply noticed that she had been visiting the nearby medical clinic every now and then to get some painkillers. Perhaps we were being too paranoid? Lin Qian reported. Tangning was quiet for a moment, but her thoughts weren't simple. Although we promised that we wouldn't get involved in the director's private life, we should still warn him to be cautious of Susan. Stuff like this is hard to say face to face, Lin Qian replied. After Susan completed her filming, the director followed through with his promise and handed her a new script. Call the contact that I've circled in this script. He will find a role for you. Director, come to my room tonight. There's something important that I want to talk to you about, Susan said, pale-faced. I'm pregnant with your child. The director froze in disbelief as he began to doubt her. We used contraception. But I still fell pregnant, Susan replied seriously. I'm not requesting for anything. It's simply not convenient for us to talk about it here. Whether you want to keep the child or not, come to my room tonight and tell me. I definitely won't cling to you. I can tell you over the phone. You are the child's father. You should at least give it a proper farewell. After speaking, Susan turned and left, leaving the director in a daze. Needless to say, the director's mind was in a mess. In fact, he had no idea what to do. It was at this moment that his eyes met with Tangning and Lin Qian. However, he quickly avoided Tangning's gaze and pretended like nothing had happened. Tangning had a clear grasp of the situation, but she did not pressure the director. Instead, she waited until dinner before she finally said to him, Director, this entire thing has always been a small matter. I hope it doesn't end on a sour note. Don't let the production get involved in too much filth, otherwise, I can't possibly remain. You need to be aware of your responsibilities. The director let out a sigh and replied with his honest thoughts. It's actually not an unreasonable thing for me to be with Susan. I already had a divorce with my wife 2 years ago, so being with another woman doesn't tread on any moral grounds. It is just a simple relationship between a man and woman. Tangning, I know that you don't like dirty acts like this. It is my fault for losing to temptation. But, I wasn't completely blinded by desire to the point where I let it affect the normal operations of the production. Since that's the case, the director should reveal the truth as soon as possible. You need to strike first before your enemy gains the advantage, Tangning said with an extra layer of meaning. After hearing this, the director let out a laugh as his expression lightened and he raised a thumb at Tangning. You are indeed wise. Tangning did not say another word and simply smiled. After all, no one hated dirty underhandedness as much as she did. I remember that Fainting Media wanted to do an interview with a survivor not too long ago. The timing is just right. It was good that the director understood what to do. As a result, Tangning could finally relax. She no longer had to worry about the schemes that Susan was plotting. As long as the director revealed everything, then the filth would never affect her, no matter how much Susan threw it around. On the other hand, everyone naturally would feel sorry for the director after discovering the dark side of Susan. After completing her scenes, Susan waited inside her hotel room for the director. But, she had no idea that he was in the middle of an interview with the media. Apart from promoting Survivor, the director looked unusually happy. So, the media were curious. Does the director have some kind of good news? Glowing with joy. Me not gonna lie, previously, to protect the privacy of my family, I do not reveal that my ex-wife and I had finalized our divorce 2 years ago. But recently, I discovered I am about to become a father, so I want to take my child and its mother into consideration and prevent any misunderstandings. In that case, we must congratulate you. I wonder who's the lucky woman. It's our production's actress, the one that just completed her filming today, Susan. The director unveiled in seriousness. We met while filming. I hope everyone can give us their blessings. That's great. In reality, the media didn't care about the director's private matters, but since he wanted to mention it, they naturally responded with their blessings. Soon, news spread to the entire industry and Susan received a phone call from her manager. Why are you in a relationship with the director? Susan was completely puzzled. How did you know? The director revealed it to the public. Since you offended Haru, I guess it's not a bad idea to find a source of support. Congratulations. As soon as Susan heard this, she opened her phone and did an online search. In response, she smashed her phone on the floor. Her original plan was to destroy the director, but he ended up confessing his love for her and even told everyone that she was pregnant. In reality, her stomach was empty. It was simply a lie to lure the director to her room. But now, she had shot herself in the foot. If she was to reveal that she wasn't pregnant, the director could now turn around and accuse her of swindling him. Soon, the director arrived as promised. But, unlike their usually secret encounters, he was now meeting her openly. Susan reminded herself to contain her anger. It was a good opportunity for her to test if the director was being sincere with her. I never thought that you had already gotten a divorce. Since you truly love me, let's enjoy our time together from now on, Susan said gently. Of course, my precious. However, I must first take you to the hospital for a checkup to see if the baby is healthy. You did so many dangerous maneuvers in the film. I'm a bit worried that it may have affected our child. Susan's expression immediately changed. What's wrong? The director asked, even though he already knew the answer. It's too late right now. Let's go tomorrow, okay? The director nodded his head dotingly. We'll do as you say. Susan overflowed with complex emotions. She had no idea whether the director was telling the truth or lying. But, it couldn't possibly be a lie. Even though the director wasn't stupid, he also wasn't the smartest when it came to relationships. After all, he couldn't even reject a woman's advancements he couldn't have possibly changed so quickly. So, the only explanation that Susan could think of was that the director truly loved her. Even if he didn't, he at least wanted the child. But unfortunately, there was no such child in her stomach. What was she to do? That night was destined to be unsettling for Susan. How was she to get past the obstacle the next day? Ningji, you are indeed amazing, Lin Qian praised after noticing the situation change. We now have the advantage. As soon as Susan makes a move, she will be in the wrong. Chapter 807, She was much more pitiful than you. That's because the director hasn't been completely bewitched, Tangning replied as she lay back on the sofa and looked at a photo of her two sons. Plus, he can't let one person ruin the entire film. After all, the other people in the cast and crew did nothing wrong. That's true, Lin Qian nodded. By the way, I just had a look at your schedule. After A Survivor finishes, are you planning to take on another film? Other actors like Tangning already had packed schedules for the entire year filled with all sorts of activities. But, when Lin Qian looked at Tangning's schedule, there was nothing after Survivor. I want to go home and spend time with my kids, Tangning replied. You're not taking the opportunity to build up your momentum? Are you afraid that you'd have no work while I'm taking a break? Tangning suddenly laughed. Don't worry, you'll have plenty to keep you occupied. I have other plans. Lin Qian did not know what Tangning had planned. She simply listened patiently because she knew the answer would eventually be revealed. That night, Susan tossed and turned beside the director, unable to fall asleep. The director knew what she was worried about, so his lips slowly curved upwards before he fell asleep. Luckily, he listened to Tangning's advice and did not fall into this evil woman's trap. Otherwise, the consequences would have been dire. Tomorrow, he was going to see how Susan planned to continue with her act. Meanwhile, from what he saw, Tangning indeed lived up to her reputation as not only a convincing actress, but also a disciplined and flawless person. He had completely met his savior. The next morning, Susan woke up early hoping to find a way to save herself. But, to her surprise, the director was awake earlier than her. In order not to delay filming, let's go to the hospital earlier. Susan clasped her hands nervously, wanting to reveal the truth, but in the end, she couldn't gather enough courage to do so. So, as the couple stepped out of the hotel, Susan's face began to turn pale. What's wrong? Are you feeling unwell? The director asked. I heard that pregnant women have mood swings and discomfort around their bodies. Let's rush to get it checked. No, that's not it. Susan shook her head. Then let's keep going. The director opened the car door and drove Susan to the gynecology and obstetrics ward of a nearby hospital. His face looked obviously excited. Susan clenched her fist with the intention to escape, but the director did not give her the chance because, even when she went to the bathroom, he would wait for her at the door. Soon, Susan was pushed into the ultrasound room as she desperately thought of a way to explain why she wasn't pregnant. A few minutes later, the director received the results of Susan's scan and looked at her confusedly. "Didn't you say you were pregnant?" "I did a pregnancy test and it indeed came out positive," Susan explained. "Where's the test results? Don't tell me you threw such an important thing away." "But, I did throw it away," Susan replied with a lowered head. "Where did you throw it?" "I'll go look for it. Even if it's in the trash, I'll dig it up," the director said as he dragged Susan out. "Did you know that I thought you were pregnant, so I revealed my divorce to the public?" "But, what about you? How did you end up treating me?" "I do whatever you want," the director yelled as he boarded his car and left Susan behind. Susan stood in the corridor of the hospital and clenched her hands angrily into fists. She knew that if the director revealed that she wasn't actually pregnant, then her career would be over. The director had done so much for her, yet she deliberately lied to him. Just the thought of being spat on by the disapproving public was enough to drown her. Meanwhile, after returning to the set, the director resumed his usual work like the entire incident with Susan never happened. Because, he was now confident that no matter what Susan did, it would not affect the production. After the morning shoot was done, the director approached Tangning both apologetically and thankfully. "Thanks to your reminder, the SLT could not make things worse. Her pregnancy was fake as expected." "Director, I did it for the sake of the crew and not to get on your good side." "I know," the director nodded. "Either way, you did me a huge favor. From now on, if you need anything, just ask for it." Tangning smiled and did not say another word. As long as the director learned his lesson and never buckled under temptation like this again, it would already be the best form of gratitude. "Don't worry, thanks to Survivor, you will definitely go home with another Best Actress award." At this moment, Susan was hiding in a hidden corner watching the conversation between the director and Tangning. Although she couldn't hear it clearly, she had a feeling that her incident with the director had something to do with Tangning. Only Tangning had the ability to recover a losing battle like this. With this thought, Susan clenched her fists tighter. It was Tangning again. Not too far away, Lin Keon arrived with Tangning's lunch and the two women began to chat and laugh amongst themselves like nothing had happened. But, Susan knew herself, how unwilling she was to accept this fate. Now that the director has exposed Susan's lie, she can't possibly have no response. "She will definitely strike back when she gets the chance," Tangning said as she ate. "You need to pay close attention to her." "Understood," Lin Keon nodded. "People like her are the most annoying. You know that she doesn't do much harm, but you can't help shooing her away because she's like an annoying fly." She absolutely had the choice to walk a clean and honest path. But, if she chose that path, she wouldn't have survived in this industry. Lin Keon sighed. "Of course, you're an exception." Tangning did not say another word. Her heart simply ached for those that had talent but didn't have good EQ. Meanwhile, Susan glared at the two women with the urge to tear them apart. However, she did not act on impulse. Instead, she waited until the director had his afternoon break before she approached him and asked, "You don't look hurt at all. You're just putting on an act, aren't you? Don't forget that you lied to me first." The director sneered. "So you thought of an idea like this to control me, didn't you?" "No, to be exact, you didn't think of it. Tangning did, didn't she?" Susan asked emotionally. The director did not reply. "Is that a silent admittance?" "Great." Susan sneered as she promised to herself that she'd make Tangning disappear from the face of the earth. "If you don't have any other business here, you can go report on set at the new production. The fact that I didn't expose this matter to the public is already a kind enough gesture. Stop clinging to me." After speaking, the director pushed Susan away. "You can wait a bit before you tell everyone that we broke up. After that, you can find another victim to sell your tricks to. On the surface, you are looking for a partner, but in reality, you are merely using your body in exchange for benefits. If not, what else could I do?" Susan laughed. "I don't have any background whatsoever." At this moment, the director pointed towards Tangning. "She was previously swindled out of everything she had and was much more pitiful than you." Chapter 808. I won't just leave it at that. Tangning, Again, why was it always Tangning? Not everyone understood the feeling of defeat. It's because of her capabilities that I lost to her. After saying this, Susan finally left the director's side, but, seeing Tangning being respected by so many people made her blood boil. We finally got rid of that pest. The director breathed a sigh of relief as he watched Susan leave. There were some people that he naturally felt cold towards. Of course, in Susan's case, her motives were too impure, so she did not deserve any sympathy. But, after Susan left the director's side, she did not completely leave the set. Instead, she approached Tangning and stared her down with eyes full of hatred. "It's not over between us. It's time you report to your new film," Tangning reminded. "I'm fuming with hatred." "You must hate yourself for throwing your body at a man and not getting anything in return," Tangning responded straightforwardly. "Tangning, I'm not going to leave it at this," Susan growled in front of everyone. She seemed to have reached her limit. Everyone looked towards the three women and began to speculate what was happening, but Susan did not explain anything before she turned and left. As soon as Susan left, everyone turned to look at Tangning. What happened? Why was Susan so emotional? I guess bad people never realize the fault in themselves. They simply judge others with the standards of a saint while they judge themselves with the standards of a sinner. Lin Ki-on sighed. "Tangning, prepare for the next scene," the director's voice echoed across the set. As soon as she heard this, Tangning immediately stood up from her seat and walked over. After Susan left, the crew no longer mentioned her name. Apparently, she had started with her new project while Survivor continued to progress. But, due to the fact that Tangning hadn't seen her babies for a while, the director gave her some time off after a few important scenes were completed so she could relieve her yearning. Moting originally wanted to drive up to get her, but Tangning saw heartache thinking about his long day at work, so she instructed Lin Ki-on to drive instead. 10 p.m. Tangning was already resting in the back seat of the van. Lin Ki-on glanced at Tangning through the rearview mirror. Seeing that Tangning was sleeping soundly, she made the decision to slow down her driving speed. But, it didn't take long before Lin Ki-on noticed a black car trailing them. Lin Ki-on was afraid it was the paparazzi or perhaps her own imagination, so she deliberately swerved into a small alley. But, as suspected, the car followed. Lin Ki-on was a little flustered as she turned back into the main road. At this time, the car suddenly turned its headlights on full beam and sped towards Lin Ki-on, smashing the van into the barrier on the right side of the road. Tangning sensed an abnormality. As she opened her eyes, she noticed a car ruthlessly ramming into the left side of their van. "Ningji, hurry and call the police. It's Susan, she's gone mad." "Hold on." Tangning pulled out her phone. Just as she was about to make a call, the black car directly ran headfirst into the side of their van. A loud bang shocked everyone. The van that Tangning was sitting in, crumpled out of shape on one side. Everyone that witnessed the scene couldn't help but sigh. How much of a grudge did this person have? It was late at night and Moting was coaxing his sons to sleep. Suddenly, Go-Go started crying without warning. Xia Yuling immediately rushed over to help. After checking him thoroughly, she discovered there was nothing wrong with him. "You're perfectly fine. Why are you suddenly crying so painfully?" Meanwhile, Tang Tang slept like a log. The sky could fall down and he'd still be unaffected. Jiangning hasn't been home in a while. He must be missing his mother. "Mom, can you watch the kids for a while? I'm going to go make a phone call." However, Moting called Tangning a few times in a row, but his call couldn't get through. Just as he began to question what was going on, he received a phone call from Lu Che, President. "Something happened to the madam." Moting's eyebrows immediately tensed up. "Welcome to the late night news." Just in, famous actress, Tangning was involved in an accident at 10:41 p.m. tonight in Zhongzhenhuan. According to witnesses, she was trailed by a black car which ended up hitting into her van deliberately. The incident happened too sudden and the scene is a mess. At this point, it is still unclear whether there are any deaths or injuries. A moment ago, Xia Yuling had simply seen Moting rush out of the home frantically, but she had no idea why because she didn't get the chance to ask him. But, after hearing the news on the television, she froze in shock and was completely dumbfounded. Indeed, the incident had happened too suddenly. Even the media had just learned of it. In a rush to get first-hand news, some reporters even wore their clothes inside out. But, no one knew the truth behind the matter, so the media could only speculate alongside the public. The words, Tangning car accident, quickly jumped to the top of search rankings and became the hottest topic of discussion. Who would hit them? Who would hold such a deep grudge? I looked at videos from passers-by. Fact, Tangning's van was thrown to the side and smashed until it was crumpled out of shape. The van is already in this state. The chances are slim for the people inside to go unscathed. She was only crowned Best Actress not long ago. What a shame. Luce and Moting rushed to the hospital where the three women were taken. Luce held back the media while Moting blocked out everything around him. His eyes were cold. One glance was enough to make anyone back away. Mr. Mo, Mrs. Mo is in this room, a nurse said as she pointed to the emergency room in front of them. But, you can't go in at the moment. Move, Moting growled. The nurse trembled in fear, so she couldn't stop Moting as he forced his way into the room. Ting. On top of the bed, the doctor was currently wrapping a wound on Tangning's arm. Luckily she did not suffer any other injuries. Moting pushed the doctor aside and immediately hugged Tangning, pulling her tightly against his chest. Lucky you're okay. Lucky. I'm fine, Tangning comforted the trembling man in her arms. I'm luckily fine. As the memory of the accident flashed before her eyes, Tangning felt a sense of fear. Because, at that very moment, she truly thought she was going to die. But, if she was to die, what would happen to Moting and her sons? If she died, how would they live the rest of their lives without her? With this thought, tears began to fall from her eyes. I'm fine. I'm really fine. Don't worry Mr. and Mrs. Mo, it's just a little shock, nothing serious. As for the other two patients, their injuries are also not serious. You don't need to worry too much. But, at this moment, how could Moting care about anyone else? Chapter 809, Madam, I discovered something. Even though the weather wasn't too hot, Tangning could feel that Moting's body was covered in a layer of cold sweat. He was afraid. In front of everyone, how fearless and ruthless was he. He had never been afraid of anyone. Yet, at this moment, he was truly frightened. I'm fine, I'm honestly fine. Tangning forgot about her fears. At this moment, her main priority was comforting this man because she couldn't bear to see him in such a worried state. However, Moting continued to hug her and wouldn't let go. Only after a considerable amount of time, when Tangning's arms began to feel numb, did he finally release her. Let's go check on Lin Qian and Susan. Tangning wanted to confirm if the two women were seriously injured, but Moting stopped her. Luce's already gone to check. However, Susan was going to suffer after this. The next morning, inside the Quan family home. After an entire night, news of Tangning's car accident had spread to every corner of Beijing. Quan Zai never cared about who was at the top of the headlines, but today, his housekeeper found a video online and placed it in front of him. Young master, look at this. Quan Zai lazily opened his eyes, his gaze containing a slight charm, making him resemble a kitten that had just awoken. What rubbish are you trying to show me? Quan Zai received his phone from the housekeeper and started playing the video. However, after 2 minutes, he suddenly sat up straight. So, she went to be an assistant for Tangning. No wonder I searched all over Beijing and couldn't find her. Have you called the hospital to confirm her current condition? Yes, young master, the housekeeper nodded. The second miss was lucky. She only suffered minor injuries, nothing serious. After hearing this, Quan Zai let out a laugh. She tried so hard to hide from me. But what was the point? Didn't I end up finding her in the end? What does the young master have planned? Let's go to the hospital. As soon as he was done talking, Quan Zai jumped up from the sofa and grabbed the keys to his Maserati from the coffee table. After putting on his sunglasses, he jumped into his car. No words came out of his mouth, but his heart was chanting the words, I dare you to hide again. Lin Qian did not hurt her arm like Tangning did. Her injury was on her head. Although her head scans came out fine, she still ended up unconscious for an entire night. So, she didn't wake up until the next morning. Luce had been watching over Lin Qian by her bedside. As soon as she woke up, he handed her a glass of water. Are you okay? Lin Qian slightly nodded her head. Due to the fact that she had been sleeping for so long, it took her a while to find her voice. That's good. How's Ningji and that crazy woman? They're both fine, Luce replied. The madam only suffered a small injury, but That crazy woman wasn't as lucky, Lu Che shrugged. It was good that Tang Ning was fine. Lin Qian once again closed her eyes to get some rest. But, at this time, a man in sunglasses suddenly entered the room. In response, Lu Che immediately said, "Sir, I think you've entered the wrong room." Quan Zai removed his sunglasses and pointed to Lin Qian. "I'm her brother." As soon as Lu Che saw Quan Zai, he understood what to do. So he glanced at Lin Qian and immediately left the room, giving the siblings some privacy. As soon as Lu Che left, Quan Zai closed the door and locked it. He then walked up to Lin Qian and sat down beside her bed. "Did you enjoy hiding from me?" Lin Qian closed her eyes, not wanting to say a word. "Lin Qian, I think I used the wrong strategy on you. That's why you were hurt for so many years." Quan Zai wasn't angry, but his smile did not look innocent. Lin Qian immediately opened her eyes and stared at Quan Zai. "What do you want to do, after you leave the hospital? Move in with me?" "Yes, it's exactly what you're thinking. Let's live together," Quan Zai said as he pulled out his phone. "Otherwise, I will call my mom right now and tell her about our relationship." "You're going to kill your mother." "It's fine. I'm selfish like that," Quan Zai replied smoothly. "You're crazy. You forced me to be like this." "You're forcing me into a dead end," Lin Qian exclaimed. "I'm happy working as Tang Ning's assistant. I don't want to live with you. Plus, I can't be threatened." Quan Zai looked at Lin Qian painfully, like he had been stabbed in the heart. "After so many years, you're still so difficult to deal with." "You should have known this long ago," Lin Qian replied straightforwardly. "Aren't you afraid that I'd kill myself?" Quan Zai suddenly laughed. "After all, if I was to die, neither of you will be in pain anymore." "What do you think of that idea?" "You don't need to die. Just stop clinging to me." Obviously, their relationship was still at a standstill with no chance of progress. If it was so easy to resolve, all that they had suffered over the years would have been in vain. Meanwhile, Tang Ning was standing outside the door. She pretty much heard everything that happened inside the room. However, Quan Zai seemed to be helpless around Lin Qian. Afterwards, she walked over to Zhu Zhen's room. Seeing Zhu Zhen sitting in bed emotionless, she walked up and looked at her. "You're sure lucky that you're still alive after that," Zhu Zhen sneered in ridicule after she saw that Tang Ning was perfectly fine. "It wasn't necessary for you to do what you did," Tang Ning said coldly. "You had a good future ahead of you, yet you decided to make a gamble." "That's right, I took a gamble. So what?" Zhu Zhen laughed. "Aren't you happy that I'll be spending the rest of my life in jail now?" "You asked for it," Tang Ning said before she turned around to leave. But, behind her, Zhu Zhen said, "Tang Ning, you've always been good at cleaning up any black marks on your name, but there are some things that you can never clean." Tang Ning did not understand what Zhu Zhen meant and Zhu Zhen did not explain herself clearly. Zhu Zhen had already hit someone with her car, so she couldn't possibly feel regret. "I'm actually quite curious how I managed to provoke you," Tang Ning queried without turning around, "so much so that you'd make such a huge sacrifice and even risk your life. I'm sure you know." After receiving this response, Tang Ning left. How did she know? Meanwhile, behind her, Zhu Zhen revealed a mocking smile. She was about to completely destroy Tang Ning. After visiting the two women, Tang Ning returned to her room to find Lu Che reporting something to Mo Ting in seriousness. "Madam, I discovered something." "What did you discover?" Tang Ning asked curiously as Lu Che handed her a piece of information. "Zhu Zhen has been diagnosed with bipolar disorder. She is mentally unstable." Tang Ning furrowed her brows. Just as she was about to say something, a nurse suddenly knocked on the door and said to the trio, "Miss Zhu has just committed suicide." Chapter 810, Help me set up a press conference. "Did she die?" Lu Che quickly asked. "Yes, she unfortunately passed away," the nurse nodded. "As well as cutting her wrist, she also stabbed herself and damaged some vital organs. While we tried to resuscitate her, her heart stopped beating." "Not only is she ruthless to others, she's also ruthless to herself," Lu Che sighed. "Also," the nurse looked a little uncomfortable. After a few moments, she finally said, "She left behind a suicide note saying that Miss Tang is not a good person." "She also repeated those words while we were trying to save her." "This Zhu Zhen, even when she's dying, She tries to drag others down with her. Mo Ting and Tang Ning both looked at Lu Che. Mo Ting then said, "Immediately handle the PR and keep this under wraps. If any news gets leaked, I will hold you liable." "Understood, President." After hearing what happened, Tang Ning lowered her head in deep thought. In response, Mo Ting pulled her into his arms comfortingly. "This has nothing to do with you." But, they were talking about a life, a living, breathing person. Although Tang Ning did nothing wrong, a person had suddenly disappeared from this earth, and it was all due to hatred towards her. So, the news was bound to shock and torment her. She never expected to experience something like this. Life was precious, so she did not think that someone could just give up on it so easily, especially not because of her. "Ting, let's just call the police." "Don't bother with PR." Tang Ning suddenly lifted her head and requested. She left behind a suicide note and so many people heard what she said. "It's the truth. The truth can be covered up. Plus, the police will eventually investigate the matter and reveal their findings." "Do you know the consequences of this?" Mo Ting asked calmly. "I've said it before, you did nothing wrong." "Ting, you understand me," Tang Ning said as she tugged Mo Ting's arm. "Even if you manage to cover up the truth for now, what will we do when it gets uncovered?" "I prefer to be honest and open. Like you said, I did nothing wrong, so, why should I be afraid?" Mo Ting looked deep into Tang Ning's eyes. At this moment, all he felt was anger. "This is Beijing and this matter involves the entertainment industry. You will only be wrong if I say you are. Otherwise, no one will dare say so." After he was done talking, Mo Ting gave Lu Che a phone call. "Immediately call the police and tell them everything that happened in detail. But, the news will definitely look bad." "What are we afraid of?" "Understood, President." Lu Che put away his phone and headed straight for the police station. Of course, with the police involved, the nature of the matter was a lot different. The rumors were already bad, yet at this time, Susan died. She died. In fact, at the moment of her death, she was crying out that Tang Ning wasn't a good person. Oh God, what kind of horrible thing did Tang Ning do to make Susan react in this way? I heard that Susan previously threatened Tang Ning on set. What kind of deep grudge did these two women have? I can't believe that Tang Ning forced Susan to kill herself. The commenter above, I think the word forced is a bit too extreme. Why would Tang Ning suddenly force an insignificant nobody to die? It's not like Tang Ning is that bored. If you don't consider this as forcing, then what is? It's going to be interesting to see how Tang Ning responds to this. I'm curious what happened between the two women. I'm curious too. I have a feeling that Tang Ning has attracted a whole heap of trouble. Oh God, don't let this happen. This matter can't have anything to do with Tang Ning. Last night there was a car accident, and today, there was a suicide. When added together, the situation just got a whole lot more serious. Afterwards, Hairu's official website released a statement. Firstly, it addressed Tang Ning's current condition and revealed that she wasn't seriously injured. It then explained, regarding Susan and Tang Ning, "We will compile the information we have and release it to the public soon." This was completely Tang Ning's style. As long as she could be transparent, she'd prefer not to protect her reputation for the sake of PR and weave a web of lies. Even though she knew it was hard to separate herself from the incident with Susan, she had no intention of pleading innocence. She simply wanted to tell the truth. What do they mean by compiling information? Are they writing up a story? A life has already been lost. Why isn't Tang Ning stepping out to explain? I know, right? She's even getting Hairu to manage the PR. I'm afraid it's not going to work this time. Retaliation from the public was as bad as Mo Ting imagined. But, no matter how bad the situation was, this was Tang Ning's decision. So, as her husband, he had to protect and support her until the end. Because, he was well aware that if she didn't explain everything clearly to everyone, it would forever bother her and she'd never be able to return to filming again. If I stop filming from now on and stay at home to take care of you and the kids, what are your thoughts regarding that? Seeing Tang Ning force a smile, Mo Ting's heart ached. As long as you are happy. Either way, I must first clarify this particular incident for you. Unfortunately, it wasn't going to be easy. Death for Susan was a form of relief, but in the eyes of everyone else, She had sacrificed her life to reveal that Tang Ning was a bad person. This message left a deep impression and caused the image previously developed by Tang Ning to be completely overthrown. This was the most difficult obstacle that Tang Ning had ever faced. It was an obstacle that couldn't be eliminated by PR. A while later, Long Ji gave Tang Ning a phone call and complained, "Is that woman crazy? What did you do to her? Why would she just commit suicide like that?" Tang Ning was originally in a slump, but, as soon as she heard Long Ji's voice, she couldn't help but laugh. "Are you that certain that I didn't do anything to her? What a joke! Who does she think she is?" Long Ji scoffed. "You're a focused actress. If no one provokes you, you would remain indifferent to them. Since you know that, isn't that enough?" "But, I don't think the PR will be easy this time." Long Ji was worried. "I heard from Lu Che that you plan to reveal everything to the public. That means you intend to tell everyone that the crazy woman left behind some last words and a suicide note just to scold you." "Tang Ning, are you aware that this matter can't be easily resolved by a bit of PR?" "I know," Tang Ning replied. "But, who are you?" "You're Tang Ning, I trust you." Long Ji suddenly cheered up. "If worst comes to worst, you can just give up being an actress. I actually have an idea that I've been wanting to discuss with you. The timing is just right." "Tell me about it." "I want to start a management agency," Long Ji said in seriousness. "Lu Che's mother has been looking down on me all along. This time, she even shamed me for giving birth to a daughter. So, no wonder we've been friends for so many years." Tang Ning smiled. "I actually have the same thought as you. Our agency needs to be special. Otherwise, the industry only needs one hire." Long Ji added. "That's right. That's why I've already asked Lin Qian to look for some highly talented people who have gone unnoticed." Tang Ning replied. "Oh God, I feel like we are surprisingly on the same page." Long Ji started cheering excitedly. "In that case, Ning, don't be afraid. Do what you need to do. We can always start over." After speaking to Long Ji, Tang Ning put down her phone and looked at Mo Ting. "Ting, help me set up a press conference."
Hit the like, thumbs up button and subscribe to my channel. Thank you for listening.